Hey guys, Nick here with Geeks with Cash, coming here with another video. Yeah, I know, it's another one on the Amico, but this is kind of a more serious talk. This one's more on whether or not the system's actually right for you, because, make no bones about it, not every system is for every person. There's multiple systems out because everybody has different tastes. Now, you're going to find people with similar tastes between the Xbox line and the PlayStation line, with most of the variances being in various different exclusives that you're going to have available on those consoles and which ones you prefer to play, right? But this is more focused around whether or not that you might be the kind of person that would enjoy something like, say, the Amico, okay? So, to that end, I've chosen 3 specific consoles. Obviously, the Amico, the Nintendo Switch, which is the most similar in mentality to the Amico, and the Series S. Well, why the Series S, you say, instead of the Series X? Quite frankly, it doesn't have any physical medium that actually goes into it, much like the Amico doesn't. It's going to have a different type of physical medium, and the price point is very similar to that of the Amico. So that way we're coming as close as we can to comparing apples to apples here, okay? So, we're going to go ahead and start with the Series S. So, pros on the Series S is it runs right around $300, so it's a good budget option. It's also very tiny, right? It's not going to give a large footprint in your house, on your home. If you have a small amount of real estate in your house and you want something compact that can play some modern games, this is a good fit. This would almost be better than a microcomputer in a lot of ways, simply because of the way it's designed. It's going to be very small. It's going to look nice on the shelf. Okay, nice is relative. I'm not always a fan of the design, but it's definitely tiny and compact. Okay, the controllers are solid. They come in a wide variety of colors. And the Xbox controller has always been one of my absolute favorite controllers on the market as far as a standard controller. So the controller is always going to be very, very good in this stance. Now, it's also going to be a little bit backwards compatible. You're not going to be able to slide your games into, but you're going to be able to pick up some of your older titles like your Xbox One games, your 360 games, and things like that in a digital format and be able to play those. So you're going to have access to a lot of games right off the bat. If you're a fan of Xbox games, this is a pretty good bonus for you. Now, it also has a ton of indie games available in the footprint since most indie developers publish on most of these platforms. So you're going to find a lot of benefit there too in the indie gaming scene. Another thing that you're going to find is like most of your Xbox One accessories are going to work. You also, and this is going to be a benefit and a minus in both, okay? Game Pass. This is a great deal in gaming, and I would be absolutely remiss if I did not mention it. For about $15 a month, you get access to a ton of great content. And more is coming onto it all the time. Now, you have to take that with a grain of salt as well, because titles go on and off of the service. So if you find one that you like that you didn't finish, you're probably going to have to purchase it, or wait till it comes back around on the system again. Now, we don't know at this point if any of the titles that pop up on Game Pass will ever pop up on Game Pass again. I'm going into the assumption that they eventually will, because most things on services like this, Netflix being my prime example, are cyclical. They'll come on and off in rotation so that the content doesn't get stale. So, that said, if you picked it up and you liked it and you want to finish it right now, then you're probably going to need to buy it after it goes off. Otherwise, you can wait till it comes back around and play it again. Now, the cons to this one is there are no real exclusives on this platform right now. There just aren't. They bought plenty of studios, and those will eventually become exclusive content for this ecosystem. However, that's not the case right now, and they've said up front that they don't really have any plans for any exclusives, at least not in the near future. So, take that for what it is. I almost feel that Game Pass becomes a double-edged sword here, because I feel like to get the most out of your Series X or Series S, whichever you prefer to buy, you should have Game Pass. It's just in your best interest to have it. If you don't have Game Pass, then why do you own the system? And it's a big point for me, right? I mean, I have Game Pass on the PC. I go ahead and pay for Ultimate. So if I decide to get a Series S or Series X or anything like that, I've got access to the full kit and caboodle. If I switch over to an Android phone, or they finally get through hashing over whatever the heck they want to hash out with the iOS infrastructure, I can play my games there on the go. So for me, I like having that around because I like having all my options on the table. So I already invest in this ecosystem. If you're not okay investing in that kind of ecosystem, you may want to shy away from this particular console. Okay? The next thing is that the games can have microtransactions, and a lot of them do have microtransactions and DLC. So if you get the game on Game Pass and it doesn't come with all the DLC, you may need to pick that up, and you may as well just go ahead and buy the title once it goes off of Game Pass, because you're not going to be able to use the DLC without the game. Now, if you're done with the game and done with the DLC, that's fine. And a lot of times Game Pass will include the DLC, but that's not always a guarantee, so also take that with a grain of salt. The next thing is storage space could be an issue, because it's an all-digital console. So you're going to have to find a way to plug into an external drive or get one of their expensive little plug-in drives, which are around $200, to expand your storage space, or just deal with uninstalling and reinstalling your titles, which most of us have been doing for a while. So, that's your last con on that one. So moving on from them, we're going to move on to the Switch next. Now, I am a huge Nintendo fan. I'm wearing a Zelda shirt right now. I actually love the Switch, and I think it's a fantastic console. Anybody that can own one, I think should absolutely own one, but not everybody's into Nintendo. So, let's go ahead and start here. This one also comes in at $300. You can get it as cheap as $200 if you're okay getting the Switch Mini or Switch Lite, and that will run you about $200, which actually makes it cheaper than the Amico. However, it removes a lot of the flexibility out of the console and makes it more of a handheld console. And a lot of people, including me from time to time, will argue that the Switch is a handheld console at heart. It's really meant to be portable and mobile, and that is one of its biggest strengths, is the fact that it is so mobile and gives you multiple ways of play. So, they also have an online subscription that'll give you access not only to like some online chat and things like that, which is a little on the weak side if I'm honest. I've tried using their application before, and it was pretty bad when I used it. It may have improved since then, but overall I was not real pleased with that particular experience. However, what I did like about it was the access to all the NES and SNES games that they keep adding more and more to in the library. Coupled with the fact that it's only $20, it's a steal. If you have a Switch and you don't pay for the service, I don't know why. It's a great deal. And everyone, again, should have that, particularly $20 a year. It's an absolute steal to be able to have those at your fingertips anytime you want them. If you're into the retro gaming scene. If you're not, then I might not even pay for the service, because there's not a whole lot that I saw that it offered except for maybe help with some online play in Splatoon and things like that. Which I'm not big in Splatoon, so that wouldn't be for me. It also has a really robust selection of exclusives. Out of all the consoles that have come out, the Switch has had the most exclusives. And just bang them out constantly. Now, they're also really bad about bringing games that have been on previous consoles to the Switch. So a lot of the Wii U games, and some of the Wii games now with Skyward Sword, are now coming to your Switch. You consider that a plus or a con as you like. It gives you more games to play, which is fantastic. It's the same game that you played before that you're having to pay full price for now. That's kind of a con. In more ways than one. Kind of a play on words. The other thing is that the system is very, very portable, like I hinted to before. You can play it on the go. You can plug it in. You can play it on a big screen. It also has multiple ways of play. You can take both the Joy-Cons off and use them like nunchucks and Wiimotes and things like that. You can plug them into like the Ring Fit, and you can use that for like your fitness or other different types of play. There's the Labo stuff, which is also very interesting if you're into that. There's the Pro Controller option if you just want to leave those docked. There's the dock for the Joy-Cons themselves that allow you to use them as one controller. You have tons of customability in the way that you approach the system and the way you play with the system, which makes it fantastic for somebody who wants a lot of various different experiences, particularly in feel of how the game is, all in one box. So it's great from that standpoint. The physical media is also very small, which makes it very easy to have enough shelf space to store tons of these. Even the cases that the games come in are small, which means if you have limited space, but you want to collect physical medium, this is a great way to do it, because you can take a ton of them on the go because the carts are super tiny, The cases for them are super small, so that they don't eat a lot of room in your home, which is another great addition for this particular console. Now, some of the downsides to this one are the Joy-Cons can have drifting issues. Flat out, they can. There's no getting around it. They've been sued for it multiple times, and PlayStation's being sued for it. I'm surprised that Xbox hasn't been sued for this stuff. It's just bit and parcel for the whole thing. The next thing is you better like Nintendo franchises, because most of your exclusives are going to be Nintendo franchises. They're not going to be third-party exclusives or anything like that. You're not going to get like exclusive Street Fighter V or anything of that nature. You're primarily going to get Nintendo's first-party franchises. And quite frankly, if you don't like Nintendo's first-party franchises, you should stay away from the Switch. Just don't buy Nintendo products. If you don't like their first-party titles, then why are you buying Nintendo products? It's really that simple. So, if you're considering the Switch, I'm assuming you like Nintendo products. Now, the party chat features are pretty abysmal through their app. I tended to use things like Discord and other things like that to talk with friends. I was not real big on the communication through the app that I had to use through my phone. I found it kind of janky. I found it didn't work very well. Could have improved drastically. I haven't used it in a long time. I wrote it off very early. And you're really going to want a beefy SD card. If you're big on downloading games to the system and you don't want to buy the physical media and you want to buy a lot of indie games, then you're going to want a pretty beefy SD card. And that is another thing that this system has going for it very well. There's another pro that I forgot to mention. Huge selection of indie games. Indie developers love going on the Switch for some reason. It has become like an indie darling system. And it's a great system to have those, because then you can take them everywhere. And that's fantastic. So, huge library of indie games along with Nintendo games there. Now, the other thing is you're actually going to have microtransactions in some titles. So, you're going to have some things that are going to have, sell you this skin or that color or whatever kind of thing going on in it. Or worse, you could have some, like, loot box action going on in there. That's another concern. It's a concern with almost every modern console. I mentioned on the S, it's on the X, it's on the PlayStation ecosystem, it's on the Nintendo ecosystem. It's just part of those ecosystems that you have to deal with if you invest with them. Now, we finally come to the Amico. Okay? So, the Amico is going to have a wide array of retro and reimagined titles that are going to be exclusive to the Amico. You're not generally going to find these kinds of experiences or this kind of play on any other console. That is one of its biggest assets and biggest draws to people like me, because I like exclusives. The next thing is you're likely never going to have played any of these titles. Most of these aren't going to be like anything that you've played, because they're back from like the Atari and the Intellivision days. They harken back to that older style of play. Most modern gamers have not played games like this. They're not invested that heavily in going back that far. So that leaves them open to a vast array of gameplay types that chances are you've never seen before, which is also, in my mind, very intriguing and a huge pro towards the system. The next thing is that there's not going to be any microtransactions. There's just not. They don't have any plans for any microtransactions. The next thing is the game price is pretty well locked right around like $10-ish. So you're going to have like $10 and below titles, which makes it easy to pick up a couple of games, whereas you might be only pick up like one game a month if you're on a budget with another system. The controller itself is probably one of the most unique controllers that I've seen since the Wii. It has a touch screen, it has 4 buttons that are kind of concave so they fit to your fingers that are on each one of the corners. It has the radial dial, which doesn't do anything until you press in, and then it has like a long range of inputs that it'll take, almost constantly taking input from the player, which will be great for some titles. The touchscreen looks nice and responsive and can act as more buttons. And on top of that, you never have to buy extra controllers. It comes with 2, and then you can use your phone if you want for the rest of them, or you can go out and buy extra controllers and mix and match colors, which gives you a lot of cool flexibility, again, in how you want to approach it. The other nice thing about the controllers is they're completely ambidextrous. If you are a left-handed gamer, and your left hand is your dominant hand, you can hold this in such a way that you can actually use your dominant hand for your gameplay, which is rare in this modern era because pretty much every controller is designed for a right-handed player in mind, with the exception of the Wii. So it's doing something that I haven't seen done controller-wise since the Wii, which I find kind of fascinating. While the Wii wasn't my favorite controller, this looks like it's taking some of those components, tweaking them a little bit, and making the whole thing a lot more palatable, more like an actual controller, than trying to completely redesign how you interface. But it's still partially doing that as well. It's very interesting, very bizarre kind of controller that's kind of hard to describe, and I don't think most people are going to get it until they've played it. Until you play with it, I don't think you're going to understand whether or not you like this thing or not. So it's going to be, it could both be a con and a huge selling point for the system, depending on whether or not you like that kind of input. Myself, I think it's a pro. They've basically taken and gone their own path with it to come up with something that works for the experience that they want to present to you. And every single one of the games, from what I've talked to from Tommy, are pretty much designed with that in mind. There's not one that doesn't use the touchscreen in some way. So they're all making full use of the controller, which is a huge pro for the system. They're actually going to make use of all of the hardware on every title, which is fantastic. Plenty of times what you'll have is you'll have a system that has a bunch of great concepts, and then those concepts aren't executed in the games that are launched on it. The bare minimum is done to get them to work, and then you have a bunch of poor ports, but you give a poor impression of the system. That's not the case here. The next thing is, it's a family-centric game system. If you have like kids or relatives that aren't necessarily hardcore gamers, but kind of want to see what all the fuss is about and kind of want to do something with you, this is a great system to boot up. It has a large array of games that have multiplayer support, and that's not just 2-player, 4-player, 8-player support, so that almost any size family can kind of join in on the fun and have a good time. And you don't have to waste a lot on extra controllers because you can simply use your phone with the Intellivision app to be able to play the game on the fly so that you don't have to invest a small fortune on controllers. Now, if you want to, you're more than welcome to do that. Those are going to be sold separately. You can and will be able to pick them up. That won't be a problem at all, if that's your preference. Now, some of the cons are going to be sort of some of the pros. Since it is such a family-centric system, most of the games are focused around a more multiplayer aspect. If you're not the kind of person that enjoys gaming with other people and prefers solo experiences or deeper, longer experiences, this may not be the system for you. So you're going to have to look at your personal gaming habits in the games and determine whether or not, if I was playing this solo, which in my case is likely a lot of the times, will you get enough enjoyment out of the system to justify spending $250 on it or not? And that is a completely independent choice that you as a consumer have to make. Other thing is that the console's unproven. This is a start-up company that has taken over an older established IP, and they're yet to be proven. And that makes a lot of people nervous. And it's understandable. I mean, you're jumping into bed with somebody that it's their first console, and you don't know if they're going to make it or not. People thought the same thing about the Xbox when it first launched. They literally laughed that Microsoft was coming out with a console, and then they just killed it for years and years. And it's proven to be a very solid brand. So all these brands get their start somewhere. But you've got to decide whether or not you want to wait to dip into the water of it early. You want to wait, or do you want to jump in now? What kind of person are you, and what's your budget like, and do you feel comfortable doing that? The next thing is longer and deeper experiences, like I hinted at before, probably aren't going to be a big focus on this system. This system is designed around family fun, easy accessibility, entertainment. It's meant for families to be able to pick it up, not to have to explain a lot, not to have like a 30-minute intro where they set the whole scene and everything like that. You're just going to boot up the game, you're going to hit start, and you're going to be playing the game. That is a huge plus to a lot of people, but I can see it being a negative to some as well. If you're looking for those kinds of experiences, and that's the primary experience you want, then you may not want to go for this console initially or ever. Part of their design philosophy is inclusion of family. The name of the system is Amico, which means friend or family. So their entire design is built around involving friends and family, not isolating yourself to a solo experience. So if that's something you really enjoy, you're either going to want another console to be able to play those kinds of games, or you're not going to want to invest in this console. The next thing is the controller is not standard. As much as I think it's interesting, as much as I think it's going to work, and as cool as I think it is going to be a very divisive controller for a lot of people, very much like the Wii's controller was. Some people loved it, some people hated it, some people just worked with it because it's what they had and they liked the games that were on the system. And this is going to be no different. So if you don't look at that controller and you go, I hate everything about that, you don't want this console. This will not be a good fit for you. Straight out. Or you're going to need to wait until it comes out and then go, I hate everything about you. I hate your face. I hate the way you look. And then you play it and you go, meh, you're okay. Or you go, oh, I had no idea. It could go either way. So my recommendation is, if you're on the fence about the controller or you don't like it as it looks right now, is wait. Play it in the store or play with friends. Get your hands on the controller somehow and play around with it. If you're okay with it at that point and you like the titles that are on it, then jump in. Then it's probably a good gaming system for you. Now, these are just some of the things that I consider when I'm looking at a gaming console and I'm looking at what I think I want to spend my money on. And these are the kind of things that I weighed. Now, whether or not it's too pricey or not doesn't really factor into me, because I can generally afford to buy these kinds of things. It's not going to break my budget. This was more to kind of present the facts as I see them between each one of these consoles, so you as an individual can make up your mind if you think this console is a good fit for you. The one thing I would caution you against is writing it off immediately and then never looking at it again. Because people were trying to do that with the Wii, and then it just exploded. Now, do I think this is going to be the next Wii? I have no idea. It would be cool. I'd like to see another Wii-style console just sweep through the nation. Anytime something like that happens, I get giddy. Mostly because it means more people are playing. More people are having fun. More people are engaging with friends and family. And people are spending less time complaining about things online because they're just playing things and having a good time. And I'd rather see people have a good time and play something and enjoy it than to cause more havoc on the internet. We got plenty. Buckets full. We're good. So whichever one of these you pick, congratulations. You have picked a great system and a great ecosystem. All of these are good. Now, if you want to go high-end and include the PlayStation ecosystem, that's phenomenal too. Kudos. In my mind, the more of these ecosystems and the more of these consoles we have, the better. There's no reason to try to destroy the thing before it ever comes out. You just let it come out, and if it does well, great, and if it doesn't, well, then it's another anecdote in the history of video gaming, which in and of itself is kind of fucking cool. But that's my take on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you got something out of it. But for now, I'll let you go, and until next time, happy gaming.